This is a list of organizations across the state, from the State Chamber of Oklahoma to the American Farmers and Ranchers, Oklahoma Farm Bureau, Oklahoma Pork Council, Wheat Growers Association. You can see all the papers listed that have editorialized against State Question 744. This is a group known as the One Oklahoma Coalition. And this is the group that's going to run television and radio ads closer to November to help educate people on this state question. We get this question a lot: has this happened in other states? And actually, it's happened two states surrounding us, Arkansas and Kansas. We want to highlight Kansas for you today. In Kansas, in 2005, it was actually forced upon Kansas by a court decision. The teachers union sued the state for adequate funding of education, and the Supreme Court came back and ruled it in the teachers union favor. The result is that the state budget nearly doubled, with $1 billion more spent on K-12 education in 2011 compared to 2004. Since the time it's passed, significant cuts to services were made, and the largest tax increase in state history was implemented. They went from a $7 billion budget, which is very similar to what Oklahoma has had over the last 5 years, to a $14 billion budget last year. You can also see that despite more money, the National Center of Education Statistics reports that the percentage of Kansas fourth graders proficient in math decreased between the same time period, and that eighth graders proficient in reading also decreased during the same time period. Money does not solve our problems. So what can you do to help us defeat State Question 744? We realize that there are going to be a lot of messages. There's going to be a lot of candidates. Come November, we're all going to get tired of the commercials that we see. It's going to be hard for the average voter to cut through everything and decide on 30-second spots. So that's why we are traveling around the state, doing these presentations, educating people on the effects of this state question, because it's the most important vote you'll make. You can take this information, you can educate your friends, family, colleagues. You can call the local radio station. You can write letters to the editor. You can get all these resources and more on our website, stop744.com. I hope that you go there. You can sign up for updates. If you are part of another community group that you would love to hear this presentation, you can go on there, fill out the information questionnaire. We'll get with you on a date, and we'll make those presentations between now and November. We have sample letters to the editor, multiple resources. I really encourage you guys to go to our website. Obviously, we're trying to get 1,000 people to give $7.44. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot. 2 weeks ago, the National Education Association wrote a $3 million check that was deposited in the Oklahoma Education Association's account to help pass State Question 744. The NEA out of Washington, D.C., they wrote a $3 million check and deposited it to their account. One Oklahoma Coalition, Oklahoma's for Responsible Government. We can't compete with them dollar for dollar. But what I can do is get people invested at a small amount, $7.44, 1,000 people. And what that does is it keeps us going around the state, getting this presentation, getting this message in front of as many people as possible. So if you have the opportunity to give, you can do that online as well. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. Our Facebook group has absolutely exploded over the last about 20 days. We went from 400 fans to 1,100 fans this morning. People are they're starting to get it. They're starting to recognize the messaging that's coming forth on 744. Please be part of our group. You can look at different things. Peter writes a blog every day. A lot of times our blog is about State Question 744 and what's going on around the state, so you can stay updated with us through that. And if you have any questions between now and then, please email us. Peter's going to hand out some push cards and some bumper stickers. If you want any other information, more information between now and then, email us and we'll get that to you right away. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions that you guys may have about State Question 744 or maybe any other of the 10 state questions we have.
Is there anyone supporting besides the NEA over here?
This is I'm glad you asked that, because the only person that we have found that has supported State Question 744, other than the OEA, is Senator Jim Wilson from Tahlequah, who obviously was a candidate for their nomination for the second district. He's the only one. You know, both sides of the aisle, you know, I stress this point. This is not against teachers. This is not against education. We firmly believe that, you know, currently Oklahoma spends $4 billion on education. That's state, local, and federal money. I haven't met anybody that doesn't think that we can't educate our children on $4 billion. What we have to do is we have to prioritize that money. We have to cut waste. You guys are in this area. You guys have all heard the story of Skiatook. There's multiple stories like that around the state. We have to cut waste, prioritize our money, and cut administrative costs. And I think you'll see a world of difference on the amount of money that we can send to the classroom and make sure that it gets there. And I think that message is that, you know, I think parents and teachers, some teachers, can understand that message and know that this is not against them. It's not against the education system. This is about protecting the state of Oklahoma from a complete disaster come November 3rd. Yes?
I remember when I saw y'all's presentation before about this. There is a counter-state question to this.
There's a counter-state question to 744. It's state question 754. And I don't talk a lot about it because it gets confusing. But 754 would prevent this sort of constitutional mandate, mandating that we spend on predetermined formulas, such as regional averages and those type of things, so that unions or other organizations and groups couldn't promote this sort of thing for other areas of government to fund. So that's a state question. It's state question 754. It would prevent anything like this from happening in the future. If both of them were to pass, the way that the state recognizes state questions is that whoever gets the most votes on the state question, that would be the one that they recognize in the state. That'd be the one that they enforce. So if 744 gets more votes than 754, then 744 is the one that they'll recognize.
I'm curious because I know in past years I have seen students coming home with paraphernalia of things that the OEA wanted to get passed into the school. Is there any way that we can stop that from going on and the education system using the children as solicitors or lobbyists generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a local control deal. I mean, I think that's when, you know, one of the biggest things, you know, one of the biggest obstacles that we face in what we do for OFRG is that that's getting people to stand up at the local level. We love to talk about Washington. We love to talk about 23rd and Lincoln. But the most important decisions that are affecting you guys are happening at the municipal and school board levels. And I completely agree with you. I think that you know, there's things that you can do. The union is very strong at the state capitol, but the more that you shine light on those things at the local level, I think the more impact that you have. So if you do see that paraphernalia, you do see that that stuff being put in you know, materials, then I mean, I would cry foul. I think that's the easiest way to try to enforce that. There's been multiple bills that have been trying to pass over the years to restrict the unions from putting information on certain things, and they've all been defeated.
Well, just the way they're counting this, again, it's for the children. Every single time they do that, everybody's heartstrings are pulled, and they use the kids in a way that's not good. And we don't do public school, so I don't know. I don't know that it's still going on, but I do know that when my kids were in public school for the year that they were, that we would get that information.
Oh, it's absolutely still going on. And then we have a lot of friends that love to send us that information that they put into their union materials that are passed around schools. It's absolutely happening. But you know, we have to beat them on the ground instead of trying to worry about beating them on television, radio, and those kind of things.
So my question is then, if they're doing that, can't we say cry foul and save people time and they have to send ours out as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely the case. The great thing I'd love to point out, and I love talking to Republican groups because I can point this out. You know, the legislature, you know, obviously we all know that the House has taken the majority, the Senate has taken the majority and kept it for this upcoming cycle. You know, we have won a lot of races around the state in a lot of rural areas, and every single time we put a candidate up on the Republican side, they don't get the OEA endorsement. And candidates worry so much about getting that OEA endorsement, but they haven't won one single race. So their bark is a lot bigger than their bite. And I think that, you know, over time with the lottery, I think everyone understands the lottery. I think people know that we have, you know, I don't like about closing down school districts, but I definitely think that there needs to be a discussion about consolidating administrative functions around the state. And I think people understand that. I think we're on the right side. I mean, I know we're on the right side, but I think we have the right messaging to defeat this.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember like the Collinsville superintendent was like the second highest paid superintendent in the state for Collinsville.
Yeah.
And then it just blows up, because that's where I grew up, and it just blows my mind that they would get paid somebody so much. But then you start looking at the rest of the superintendents and know that they get a minimum of like $75,000. The lowest paid one, it just doesn't make sense when some of those school districts don't even have 100 students.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just going to have to kind of think out loud for a minute. I am a school board member, and I know that the school boards, the superintendents, a good proportion of the teachers, they are leaning, you know, members of the OEA, so kind of leaning that direction. You mentioned the school boards. From a school board perspective, I don't think, and I'll have to contact the Oklahoma State School Board Association's attorney, but I don't think as a school board member there is a whole lot that I can do in opposition to 744. If I think, and I don't know, I'm going to have to check into this, but I don't think I'm going to be able to say much about it in a school board meeting because it will look like I'm electioneering or whatever else, you know, obviously against it. So I was kind of wondering here, have you all contacted the Oklahoma State School Board Association to find out what their official position is on it? And like I say, I know, and I would encourage everybody to contact the school board members and pressure them, because I can tell you, we don't get nearly enough involvement from the parents, from the communities, just across the board. We really don't. So I would encourage everybody to find out who your school board members are, start talking to them, and then again, I can tell you that I will find out for me personally what I can do. But I was just kind of curious if y'all have had any contact with the Oklahoma State School Board Association.
We haven't had any contact with the School Board Association. The one thing I can say is electioneering laws and rules of the Ethics Commission is a little broader with state questions than it is actual candidates. I know, you know, we have to abide by those same things as being a 501c4 nonprofit organization. We have a lot more slack than a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but electioneering, I think there's some broader scopes when it comes to ballot questions. But I'll give you a card, and I'd love to hear any sort of response that you get.
All right.
Any other questions about this or any other state questions?
What are the other questions that are on there that we need to be
How much time do I
concerned
have?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Okay, well, we can just run down real quick just to give you an introduction to these state questions. While he's pulling that up, I want to say OFRG, I didn't get an introduction of what really our organization is. We're a taxpayer advocacy group, so it's just Peter and I. We're a two-man show, and I lobby at the Capitol for taxpayers. We really try to focus on transparency of taxpayer dollars and functions of government. We've been around since 2008. Our website, ofrg.org, is going to have all these state questions on it. The same presentation, you can go there and send people to our website to get this information. Of course, like I said, Peter writes a blog every day that's really fantastic on issues, not only on issues that are around the country affecting Oklahoma, but issues across the state. So these are 2010 Oklahoma ballot measures. The first one that you're going to see, and I'm so glad that it's this way, the first one you see is actually 744. We tell a lot of people to